Crap.
Hello, friends. Ensign Ricky from SomethingAwful.com here. Inspired by our thread in The Book Barn, where we summarize the worst that the Star Wars Expanded Universe has to offer, I have ventured to share what is possibly the worst that I have possibly encountered that is not associated with either Karen Traviss or anything that wasn't written by Timothy Zahn. So we have Star Wars. Hey, that's good. There's Resident Evil. That's also good. Yeah, it's unlike the peanut butter cups. You know what? They're just not two great tastes that go well together. I am, of course, talking about Death Troopers. Now, at first glance, you might think otherwise. Look at that fucking cover! Seriously, I bought this based on the cover alone. Doesn't that just scream, holy shit? My god, how could this possibly suck? And you also might remember how back in the 90s, that there was the book Shadows of the Empire. It was this big media tie-in. There was the book, there were comics, there was a CD, there's the Nintendo 64 game. Well, it turns out that a little project called Death Troopers was tied into Star Wars Galaxies. Jesus fucking Christ! There is no way this could possibly suck balls, right? Right? Alright, let's get this train wreck underway. Chapter 1. Purge. Really, this chapter serves absolutely no purpose beyond introducing two of the main characters, with possibly the most goddamned ridiculous names in the entire expanded universe. Trig and Kale Longo, sons of Von Longo. And according to Wikipedia, Trig looks like the bastard son of Ron Howard and Jar Jar Binks. And, of course, this is Kale. Apparently they have something planned for the following day, but we've been given fuck-alls for details so far. They're just prisoners on board the Imperial prison barge Purge, and were picked up along with their father as con artists or something. Who cares? Chapter 2. Meat Nest. We start off with the sight of breakfast aboard the Purge, and needless to say, it sucks. Trig reminisces about his father's death 2 weeks ago, and for some reason the phrase meat nest is involved. Yuck. At no point is that phrase used again beyond the title of the chapter. Trig and Kale go off to complete their deal with whoever the hell it is. Chapter 3. Where the Bad Air Goes. So there's a pointless encounter with a prison guard, and these two move on. It turns out they want to meet with the Delphinian Face Gang, which is led by a character named Our Miss, who is second in command to a character named Sixtus Cleft. Anybody really care? No? Okay, moving on. Oh, and apparently Miss has a face that looks like a vagina. And you can feel free to admit if the idea turns you on. So, Kale asks for his payment, and Miss indicates an empty patch of floor in front of them. Kale accuses Miss of trying to rip them off, and Miss all but admits he had Sixtus murdered, took over the gang, and is not honoring old arrangements. In fact, he claims that he's promised his men that they can murder the Longo brothers. So in response, Kale reaches out, rips Miss's facial peelings out, and they run off until they notice the Purge isn't moving anymore. Chapter 4. Medbay. We now meet the sole interesting character in this book, prison doctor Zahara Cody. And under the term interesting, I'm also including these surprise guest stars that show up later. Oh look, Wikipedia just sucked all the interesting out of her. Okay, well, thanks to the magic of computers, we're gonna change that. Oh, that's better. Her sidekick is the comically nicknamed medical droid Waste. How humorous. The chapter starts by having Waste inject a Doug with a syringe of Colto. The Doug plays dead until Dr. Cody shoves it off the examination table. You gotta love that great bedside manner right there. But it turns out a lot of inmates up on board the Purge, they fake illness to keep away from the rest of the population, which, when you think about it, is probably a good idea, and probably happens in prisons these days. I don't know. We also meet a Deveronian named Gat, who apparently is suffering from cirrhosis of one of his livers. Because it turns out that most Deveronians are alcoholics, and the alcohol does more damage to their physiology because their blood is based on silver instead of iron. Don't really know how that works, but I guess that's kind of interesting. And I guess Gat had a horn snapped off in a prison fight or something. He's got a nervous habit of fiddling with the stump. Cody wants to know if they've reached the penal colony yet because the engines have stopped, and thinks about the resignation she'd submitted following the death of the still comically named Von Longo. We're then treated to a quick flashback scene of her pre-Purge life, none of which really matters. She thinks a bit more about Von Longo, and a deathbed visitor he had by the also comically named Jareth Sartoris, who is the captain of the guards aboard the Purge. Jareth Sartoris. Now, why does that name sound familiar? Oh. Chapter 5. Word. Well, guess whose point of view we're going to now? Yep, we're going to Sartoris, or as the Mystery Science Theater 3000 crew called him, Garth Vader. You know what? I'm officially changing his name. Garth wanders until he meets 3 other guards named Vesic, Austin, and Armitage. They want to know why they've stopped. The rumor is both their engines blew. Vesic gives the weakest Star Wars curse word ever, Stang, and then ribs Armitage over his pompadour hairdo, implying it's done that way to impress Dr. Cody. But really, when you think about it, and all the other crazy hairstyles in Star Wars, it's not that bad. Really. Well, they move on to the warden's office, Warden Cloth, I guess. And it turns out that Cloth had his office decorated to seem larger than it actually was, with holograms on the walls. However, Garth noticed that there's a blown pixel in just one corner, and his suspension of disbelief is just right out the window. So Cloth confirms the engines are fucked. They're still 7 days away from their destination. However, there just happens to be a Star Destroyer in the area, and although they're not answering the distress calls, the Purge is going to approach anyway, because they can detect a handful of life forms. Yeah, I think this just mirrors as subtle as a sack of hammers, really. Well, Cloth insists that even if the ship is deserted, they're going to steal an engine so they can just keep moving, and dismisses the other guards, but wants to talk to Garth. You see, it turns out that Cody actually saw Garth kill I'm not saying that name again. No, I'm not saying that name again. It's stupid. Okay? Okay, I'm going to tell you what. We've already changed one name based on the final sacrifice. Alright. So it turns out that Cody actually saw Garth kill Larry Zonka in the Medbay during an antiquated interrogation technique. And Cloth states this will be Garth's opportunity to redeem himself in the eyes of the crew, the inmates, and dismisses him, and then we're treated to the charming images of Garth's sweat stains in his armpits. Yeah, that's terrific. That's all for this entry. Hopefully next time you won't find my brains sprouted all over your YouTube window. Have a good day, and next piece will be coming soon.